dear friends, I am Professor V. Suresh, former Director, Center for Yoga Studies, ANNAMALAI University. Basically, I am also from the psychology department. Hence, I feel that yoga is predominantly a psychological science and rather a behavioral science. It is in that sense we have to understand the psychology behind yoga in order to understand the benefits that we will derive out of practicing yoga. And yoga assumes that each person is endowed with unlimited potentials. That is where yoga differs from the Western psychology, because Western psychology assumes that each person is born with limited potentials, is incomplete, which needs to be rectified. Whereas yoga believes that each person is born with unlimited potentials, but most of these potentials are hidden. That is, the person is not aware of many of his potentials. Thus, it is essential to understand as many potentials as possible, and it is possible only when one goes deep within rather than focusing more on the outside world. But what happens in the present day life situation is we focus more on the external world. As a result, we have learnt more about the outside world rather than our own self. And Martin Luther King Jr. rightly stated that we have explored the external world. That is, our scientific power has overtaken our spiritual power. We have guided missiles but misguided men. So, it is in that sense there is a need to understand one's own inner reality also. It is only when we understand our inner reality and the corresponding outer world, only then there would be a match between us and the outer world's requirement. It is in that sense that we need to realize our potentials. When you say realizing, the hidden potentials are at a very rudimentary form. And when we develop that, so that we are able to function more effectively and ultimately contribute to the betterment of the society at large. When we are able to do that, then we are motivated to develop another potential. So, as a result, realizing as much potentials as possible strengthens one's personality and ultimately contributes to satisfaction and happiness. So, enduring happiness lies in realizing one's hidden potentials, and such a realization of hidden potential is possible only when we try to understand the inner world. And yoga is a science that helps us in understanding our inner aspect and then aligning with the outside world. So, it is in that sense yoga is a vast system of spiritual practices that provides tools for inner growth. So, inner growth is essential for efficient, effective outer functioning. It is in that respect we see that playing different aspects or roles helps in the betterment of personality, and the betterment of personality helps us in playing various roles more effectively. And when you say yoga is a vast system of spiritual practices, many people on hearing the term spiritual immediately assume that it is religious. But psychologically speaking, religion and spirituality, there is a slight difference. The goal of religion, I would say, is spirituality. And it is in that sense spirituality should be seen from a psychological perspective. Only then the common man can understand what spiritual growth is, and can also understand how yoga can contribute to the spiritual development of a person. So, spirituality is nothing but the realization that there is something beyond oneself, there is a power above oneself, there is a superpower. You can call it nature, you can call it God, etc. But do not call it fate, because when you call it fate, you look at it from a negative aspect. Whereas when you say nature, when you say God, you say that there is a superpower and that power is guiding you in various aspects. So, the goal of any religion is spiritual development, and that way the various yogic practices help us in higher forms of development, leading to ultimately the highest aspect of development, that is the spiritual development. And yoga teaches us how to understand the different aspects of our nature and how to harmonize these with the greater universe within and around us. So, initially for a healthy personality development, there is a necessity to understand our own nature. We have a nature, there is an inherent tendency in a person, there is an inborn tendency in a person, there is a genetic aspect of a person's behavior. At the same time, there are aspects like learning from the society, learning from others, learning from experience, etc. So, that way which actually shape our nature, that is the way we think, the way we feel, the way we act, etc. So, for every aspect of our behavior, there is something behind it which we need to understand, become aware of, and how to harmonize these with the greater universe within and around us. That is, your thinking and your action should lead to a harmonious relationship with the external environment. It is possible only when our nature is aligned with the requirement of the outer world. Like for example, any individual wants to be respected. Any individual would like to get love and affection from you. But when you get angry, when you get upset with the person, what happens? Well, this is against or opposite to what the other person is expecting. So, ultimately harmony is disturbed in such a situation, and so it can lead to misunderstanding, unhappiness, etc. So, it is in that sense yogic practices or yogic tools help us to understand ourselves and change our nature so that we can promote harmony within as well as around us. And one may ask, what do you mean by within, harmony within? That is, our various aspects should be well integrated. On the one side, I say that you should not get angry, but on the other side, I am getting angry. That means, well, I am using two aspects within myself, there is a contradiction within myself. So, when I tell you to do something, I should be able to do something. So, only when there is harmony, healthy integration within, only then outside expression would also be appropriate, would also be healthy. So, yoga shows us how to realize our highest evolutionary potential. When you say highest evolutionary potential, what is the ultimate goal of your life? Not just the goal for a short term, but the ultimate life situation for which you are born. So, this guides us in various aspects in life in a healthy way, and yoga, by promoting the right tendencies, the right thinking, the right feeling, etc., guides us in the right way to lead to higher forms of development. But among the common man, there are some misconceptions about yoga. Most people believe that only asanas are yoga and practice them to enhance their physical fitness. So, yoga is seen only as a physical exercise rather than a spiritual exercise. And anyway, whatever it is an exercise, because only with practice qualities within you can be developed, otherwise qualities cannot be developed. So, your efforts play a vital role, and when one believes that yoga is pertaining to only the physical aspect, then it addresses only the various concerns of the body. That is why when you say, why do you want to, when you ask people why do you want to learn yoga, they say, well, I have a back pain, I have a headache, I have this, I have that, etc. They mention only physical discomforts or physical issues. And as a result, when you focus only on the physical issues without understanding the psychology behind that, then it does not help one to grow spiritually. Many people have come to me and said, sir, I have been practicing yoga for so many months or years. Is yoga useful? I turned back and asked them, only you have to tell me whether yoga is useful, because you have been practicing it. So, when you learn to practice yoga, you should know what for you are trying to learn. And only then, when you know this is the reason why I am learning, the second one, you should try to understand whether your goal is right. And the third one, when your goal is right, then you need to adopt it both in letter and spirit, so that the various aspects of development become possible. So, the central concepts in yoga are mind and consciousness. When we teach yoga in the first class itself, it is mentioned that the goal of yoga is expansion of consciousness. Here again, the term consciousness, we have to compare it with Western psychology, because in Western psychology, the term consciousness is used only to refer to a small aspect of the mind, that is what you are aware of at a given point of time. But in yoga, when you say expansion of consciousness, as you understand more and more about your own self and also the outside world, you integrate those information to see things from a larger context. So, the context in which you see things actually keeps on expanding as you integrate more and more information through your experiences. And when your consciousness expands, then ultimately you see things in the appropriate context. As a result, your perception is more accurate, your motivation is more accurate, and ultimately enhances your personality. And the other concept is mind. In Western psychology, when the field emerged, initially it was defined as the study of mind, but subsequently the concept of mind was rejected by Western psychologists, not because the mind does not exist, but because they felt that the mind cannot be studied, or it is difficult to study the functioning of the mind through scientific procedures, which means they felt that the scientific procedures were inadequate to study the mind, and as a result they defined psychology as the study of behavior, which consists of the elements of the stimulus, the response, and the behavior. But that is not enough, because the mind is above the brain, and which is the tool of consciousness. So, the mind provides information from the external world as well as from within, and then it provides information to consciousness so that consciousness can expand. So, all the behavioral tools of an individual lie within the mind, and the mind has a tendency to wander, the mind has a tendency to seek pleasure. That is why we actually go after pleasures more and more. And when the mind enjoys something, it has a tendency to revive around it again and again in order to gain more and more pleasure. That is why when you like a sweet, well, you want to have the sweet more and more. When you like a song, you keep singing the song again and again. So, the mind has a tendency to seek pleasure, but pleasure seeking can affect the long-term development of the individual. So, unless the mind is trained to focus on the right path so that it will lead to the long-term healthy development, the mind can affect the development of the individual, and yoga is a system which helps in training and regulating the mind in the right path so that a healthy personality development is possible. Yoga aims at expansion of consciousness by training the mind in the right process, thereby integrating body, mind and spirit. So, your body has to be healthy, and body is the container. The mind is a system which functions, and this mind or this particular system is the one which leads the individual to a particular goal, and spiritual development is the ultimate goal. Then the question may be asked, what do you mean by spiritual development? The person should evolve from a selfish pleasure seeking nature to a nature where he or she is motivated to contribute to the welfare of others. When I say welfare of others, not necessarily human beings, it can be animals, it can be plants, etc. So, the person is motivated to enrich the lives of people, and she or he understands the problem of the other living species, and ultimately wants to help more and more species to grow well so that the universe can be healthy. Such an approach strengthens body and mind and promotes healthy development and contribute to the happiness of an individual. That is, when the mind is focused on certain things, because usually the mind is disturbed by anything that it comes closer to. As a result, the mind keeps on wandering because there are many distracting aspects, and the mind jumps from one distracting aspect to the other. Whereas only when it is trained in the right path, it is able to ignore the distractions and move toward the right aspects, and that is when the mind feels strengthened. It feels that it is strong enough to deal with any situation, and when that happens, it promotes healthy development in the individual. When I say healthy development, what it implies is that the individual acts in such a way that more and more positive characteristics are added to his personality, and when more and more positive characteristics are added, his behavior becomes more functionally effective. When it is more functionally effective, it leads to spiritual development in the individual. When that happens, then enduring long-term happiness takes place in the individual. Such an individual will be a highly satisfied individual, a highly happy individual. Otherwise, pleasure seeking provides only short-term happiness, not long-term enduring happiness. That is why in the present day materialistic society, though we have so many conveniences and comforts, we are not happy in the long run. So, we need to understand what we require for our healthy development and what can promote for our happiness in an enduring manner. Thus, one cannot derive the benefits of yoga without the mental qualities. So, the mental qualities are to be developed. It is not just physical exercises, the various mental qualities. Then what are the mental qualities, one may ask? It is assumed in yoga that each person is born with a particular nature which is positive in its orientation. So, we are born only with positive qualities like the capacity to love, gratitude, etc. So, these are the things which can lead to a harmony with the relationship and also a harmony with the outside world. And when one acts against one's true nature, like for example, you have the capacity to show love. Without showing love, when you show hatred towards somebody, then that disturbs your harmony, and as a result, your mental quality will also be affected and it leads to a negative quality in the person. So, developing healthy mental qualities depend on the yogic practices which control and regulate the mind of the person. And to conclude, we must understand that yoga is a way of living. It has to be integrated in our day-to-day life situation from moment to moment. It is not just sitting for about half an hour in the morning, practice yoga and then go back doing whatever you want to. That is not the case. Like when you modify your thinking, such a thinking should be used in every aspect of life. When you modify your feeling, such a feeling should be adopted in every aspect of life, etc. So that way it is a way of living which guides us in our day-to-day living. It balances the body and the mind. The body has a tendency, the body has a need, the body has a capacity. Similarly, only when the body and mind work in harmony, healthy development is possible. Otherwise, when they work in disharmony, the mind will be more concerned with focusing on the issues of the body rather than focusing on the higher forms of development affecting the personality development of the individual. Yoga trains and regulates the mind. So, as we said, when the mind is wandering and running after pleasure, you try to control and make it focus only on the right aspect which will give enduring happiness, and ignoring the short term pleasures as inadequate, as affecting our growth, and as a result the mind goes after the right aspects. It is regulated, and better awareness of self and the universe occurs through the practice of yogic tools. And as a result, we must be aware of the fact that yogic practices should help us to focus on the inner side also, to understand our own self. When I say understand your own self, when you feel in a particular way in a situation, what do you feel? Why do you feel? What makes you feel that way? Is it appropriate to feel that way, etc.? Then it helps you to understand your own strengths as well as weaknesses. Likewise, well, what is the principles on which the universe is functioning? What is the expectation of other people? What are the needs of other people? And what best I can do to promote harmony between me and the outside world, etc. So that way it brings a better awareness. It promotes meaningfulness in life. See, the goal of life should be meaningfulness. What is it that you want to achieve in your life situation? There can be short-term goals, but these short-term goals should take you to the long-term goal, the ultimate goal. So, the ultimate goal is the one which guides all your behaviors, and when you attain the goal, there is a sense of achievement, there is a sense of satisfaction, and there is a sense of happiness also. As a result, we need to promote happiness and meaningfulness in our life situation. And meaningfulness connects the past, the present, and the future. So, that is where meaningfulness is important. When you become aware of yourself as well as the universe, when you are able to harmonize both, then you are able to form a meaning in life, so that the life is more meaningful, more effective, and you are able to evaluate your development from time to time. And ultimately, yoga is a spiritual practice that helps in expansion of consciousness. So, it is in that sense, yogic practices are full of psychological aspects. Unless you understand the psychology behind yoga, it is not possible to understand the ways of personality development. So, it is in that sense the psychological aspects are important, and please understand and benefit out of the practice of yoga, and thank you.